Okay, so sometime in 2006, something remarkable happened in Zimbabwe. All right, there were harsh economic conditions. The country was on the brink of collapse economically. They could not pay salaries of workers. They could not provide basic amenities for their people in Zimbabwe. And President Robert Mugabe and his economic team, they were in a total state of confusion. So President Robert Mugabe called a meeting of all his economic eggheads. All of you, come here, gather here. Let us find a solution to the lack of money in Zimbabwe. We need money. All right? So they called a meeting. They called the governor of the central bank to sit down. And Robert Mugabe asked the governor of central bank to get up. And he was asking him key questions. You are the governor of central bank? He said, yes. One of your responsibilities is to print money? He said, yes. So why are you not printing money? We don't have money. We can't pay salaries. We don't have money. Our politicians, the one that like to loot money, there's nothing to loot. What is wrong with you? Is the printing machine still working? Yes. Okay. You have ink? Yes. You have paper? Go and print money. And the CBN governor, being an economist, was like, I thought, he said, stop thoughting. This is a very simple problem with a very simple solution. Go and print money. The central bank governor had something to say, but probably, well, the president was not having any of it. Okay? So they went and they printed money. Now, if you want to hear the rest of this story, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Get a pen and a paper. I'm going to be teaching you a lot of financial terminologies you probably have never heard before. I will take complex financial terms and break them down that in a way that even a 5-year-old would understand. Okay? Thank you for subscribing. If you have subscribed, let us continue this video. Now, they went to print money. Printed money everywhere. They started paying salaries. They even increased the salaries of some civil servants. Where you people have suffered enough. Increased their salary. Non-governmental organizations, government was even giving them grants. Okay, so what they did was they paid salaries. Okay, they paid pension. They had a backlog. They printed money and they used it to pay all these things. And they also issued out loans to their political friends and associates. You know, the ones that had girlfriends gave money to their girlfriends, and there was serious cash flow in Zimbabwe all of a sudden. Now, let me explain to you economically how this eventually backfired. Now, to grow an economy, you had to improve on your productivity, okay, via manufacturing, via agriculture, okay. You had to produce more. You had to produce more goods and more services, okay. You had to make your country to be able to attract foreign investors. It is these foreign investors coming to patronize your goods and services that should now translate to what? To cash. Okay? Now, the reason Zimbabwe economy was in shambles was because productivity, manufacturing, agriculture, everything was what? Down. That was why they had the problem originally. Now, the solution that the economic team, proposed was to print more cash. They ignored productivity, agriculture, and the rest. Go straight to, print more cash. So, cash supply was what? Very high. And the cash found a way to circulate because salaries were paid. Some people got pay rise. pensions owed were paid, backlogs were cleared, contractors were paid. Contractors to do roads, to provide amenities, they were all paid because cash was printed. Loans were given out to big individuals and friends of politicians. Loans were given out to banks. So there was cash flow in the economy. Somebody that they increased his salary, when he gets home, he will give his wife more money. He will give his children more pocket money. If he has domestic staff, he will pay them. So there was cash flow in the economy. There was so much cash. Remember, productivity, products, everything was down. Okay? Now, let me tell you what now began to happen in the marketplace. Let's go to a typical Zimbabwean market, and let us see what is happening. Because productivity and manufacturing is low, agriculture is down, in the entire market of Zimbabwe, for instance, there were only 2 tubers of yam. This is the man selling yam. 2 tubers of yam, each one selling for $5 each. Okay? Now, only 2 tubers of yam. 30 people. These people, they have money because their salaries have been paid. They are Zimbabwe contractors. They have gotten money to execute projects. There is cash flow. They want to buy yam to eat. Okay? 30 people want to buy the only available 2 tubers of yam in the market. Okay? That automatically tells you that this yam will go to what? The highest bidder. All right? This yam has to go to the highest bidder because everybody wants this yam. So what this man did was to add a 0 each in front of the 2 yams. The moment he did that, the number 30 reduced to 21. Some of them thought, are you crazy? This small tuber of yam for $50. Yeah, I have the money, but I don't throw money away like that. Come on. 9 left. This man still had to contend with 21 people interested in his yam. What did he do? He added 1 more 0 in front of each yam. What happened? The number of interested persons reduced to 9. He went ahead, added another 0. This guy shouted, what? 1 tuber of yam, 5,000 Zimbabwe dollars. They got angry. 6 left, remaining 3 people. He added 1 more 0 in front of each of the yam, making the price of the yam $50,000 each. 2 left. It remained only 1 person, and he gladly paid for the 2 yams. Now, this illustration is just telling you a basic economic fact and reality. Okay? When demand is higher than supply, what happens to price? Price goes what? Sky high. Because the competition to buy it is too high. So price has to reflect it. That was what was now happening in Zimbabwe. Things became super costly. All right? Just a simple handkerchief like this in Zimbabwe, you will see they will tell you, oh, handkerchief is 50 billion Zimbabwe dollars. Yes. You will see one fish, just one fish like this that you want to use to cook. Just one fish that you want to use to cook in the market. They will tell you it's 30 billion Zimbabwe dollars. All right? Since everybody is crazy and there was inflation, hyperinflation, that was now the situation. Okay? You see people pushing cash in wheelbarrow. Because if the lowest denomination as at then was 1 Zimbabwe dollars, and you want to buy maybe this earpiece, and they tell you it's 10 million Zimbabwe dollars for this earpiece. Imagine the amount of cash you will have to move. So the central bank met and they said, It's like we are going to fade out lower denomination of money. $1 is now useless because there's nothing sold for $1 Zimbabwe dollar. Even 100 Zimbabwe dollar is useless. Okay. Chewing gum is worth 30 billion Zimbabwe dollars. So let us make our smallest currency, our smallest denomination. Let us make it 100 billion Zimbabwe dollars is the lowest denomination. Okay. Now Zimbabwe was in trouble. People will go to toilets and wipe their bum with a Zimbabwe dollar note because a piece of paper was more valuable than the Zimbabwe dollar. Children were playing with Zimbabwe dollar on the streets. The street was flooded with Zimbabwe dollars. If you want to buy a pen, you need 39 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. That was the hyperinflation. Okay, hyperinflation of 2008 in Zimbabwe. $1, $5, $10, $20, $100, $500, $1,000, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 in one note. $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, $10 million, $50 million, $100 million, $200 million, $500 million, $1 billion in one note, $10 billion, $20 billion, $50 billion, $10 trillion, $20 trillion, $50 trillion in one note. The biggest one, 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. As at this point, the Zimbabwe currency became a disaster. Even a piece of paper had more value than their currency. So at a point in 2008, it got to the peak that they had to collapse. Their currency died. They now started using foreign currency because the piece of paper or tissue paper on the floor had more value than their currency. And this did not only happen in Zimbabwe. Sometime around 2016, this happened in Venezuela as well, where inflation was so high, things were so costly that there was no need to be counting money. They started weighing money. How many kg? You need 5 kg to be able to buy 1 tuber of yam. 5 kg of money. They were no longer counting. Nobody had time to count. Just weigh it and use it to buy it. Isn't this picture funny? Imagine, this is Venezuelan currency, the Bolivar. Do you know that you need all this money just to buy one plantain? People used to put money in wheelbarrow. Where are you going? I'm going to buy toothpick. You can imagine what inflation cost in Venezuela. Also, in 1923 in Germany, there was hyperinflation as well, where a loaf of bread cost as much as 250 billion Deutschmarks. Now, quickly, let us talk about the history of money, especially the dollar. Okay? Money had always been tied to a precious stone. Could be diamond, could be gold, could be silver. That's how it had always been from time immemorial. So when the dollar, paper dollar, was printed, it had a backing in gold. Okay? So for every dollar note, there was an equivalent gold bar that was stashed in a bank. As at that time in the United States of America, you could actually take your dollar notes to the bank and they will swap it for gold for you. That was what they called the gold standard. All right. But in the year 1971, President Richard Nixon, who was the 37th president of the United States of America, was the one that now stopped the swapping of dollar note to gold. As at when the dollar note, each dollar note had a gold representative, the prices of goods and commodities were relatively stable. Okay? Because you could not print the dollar anyhow, because for every dollar, there had to be a gold backing. So when President Nixon removed the gold standard and said you could no longer swap your dollar for gold, dollar doesn't have to have a gold backing, that gave the central bank the powers to print money. Okay? Now, that is the major cause of inflation. When you print money over and beyond the available manufactured products, agricultural products that will be patronized with that money, you are creating chaos and tension in your economy. Okay? Now, real quickly, let us talk about consumer price index. If you follow this YouTube channel, I believe by now you know the meaning of inflation. Meaning of inflation is the percentage via which prices of goods and commodities increase on a monthly or a yearly basis. It is also the rate at which your money devalues, based on the fact that prices are always going up. What your money, a certain amount of money could afford last year, it can no longer afford it this year, so it is devalued. Okay, so consumer price index is a measure of the rate of inflation. It measures the prices of goods and commodities that consumers have to pay. So when there's an increase in the price, it tracks it. So government uses CPI, consumer price index, to track inflation so that they could have the data, the digits, and so that they can plan economically on how to cushion the effect. All right. So what are the pitfalls of CPI? CPI is not accurate. Why? Because it has some pitfalls, some challenges. All right. Now, number one challenge is the Cantillon effect. The Cantillon effect. What is the Cantillon effect? Cantillon effect says the closer you are to the money, the more of the money you get. Now, the central bank has printed money. Let's say this is the central bank. They have printed money. Okay, let's call central bank Bank. Okay, they have printed money. Will they come and give you and I the money in our houses? No. So who are the closest people to the central banks? They are the commercial banks. So let's call them the banks. They are the closest because now central bank will give them that money in form of loans. Okay, and say at an interest rate of say maybe 3% annually. So they are giving out the bulk of the money. And you see countries are talking about going cashless policy. So as a matter of fact, the central banks of countries don't even need to print money. All they need to do is to send you computer generated digits that will enter your bank account. And you think that you have money. You will see that you have money. So they can just transfer. So central bank can give out loans with their printed money or computer generated digits, and it is money. Because when the gold standard was removed, what it meant was that money no longer had value because it had a gold backing, a valuable backing. It had value just simply because the government said so. Okay? Just simply because the government said so. So they give loans to these commercial banks. And who are the closest people to the commercial banks? The super wealthy individuals. So these super wealthy individuals and entrepreneurs will approach commercial banks and they will get loans. The money will get to them first. Then they will now go and pay their workers, people who are working for them in their company, their domestic staffs, and everybody. Okay, so if they've been owing salaries for long, they can pay the backlog now. All right. Then these workers will now go home and give money to their wives to go and fix their hair, fix their nails, pay money for their children's pocket money and school fees. So you see how the money is going. So CPI cannot measure inflation accurately because everybody does not get to share the money equally. Some people have more than other people. So that's a pitfall for CPI. Let's talk about another pitfall for CPI that makes inflation difficult to track is a phenomenon called shrinkflation. Now, what is shrinkflation? And how does it make it difficult to track inflation by CPI? Let's say this is a sachet of powdered milk. Now, the milk is filled up to this point and is being sold for $5. And it weighs 100 grams. Now, same milk now, because this company wants to act like they are on the side of the people, prices are going up. But no, we don't want to increase our price. We want to stay loyal to our customers. It is milk. Oh. Milk that used to be full up to this level before, they will now reduce it to this level. It was 100 grams before. Now this milk is 70 grams, but they will still retain the same price. So CPI, in the eyes of CPI, how much was milk before? 5 grams. How much is milk now? 5 grams. So there's no inflation. But there's been what? Shrinkflation. They have shrinked the quantity. Nowadays in Nigeria, you will see goods and commodities are getting smaller. It is even worse in my country because upon the shrinkflation, the price will still go up. Something that you used to buy 100 grams for $5 before, now you are buying 50 grams for $10. Okay, so shrinkflation makes it difficult for CPI to track inflation. So let's talk about another phenomenon that makes it hard for CPI to track inflation. It is called skimpflation. So what is skimpflation? Now, since we used milk earlier, let's continue to use milk. Okay? This is the other milk. 100 grams before inflation, $5 before inflation. Skimpflation is very tricky and very difficult for CPI to track because for skimpflation, after inflation, it still remains 100 grams and the price still remains $5. So the question is, what has happened? Nothing has changed. In skimpflation, what they do is they reduce the quality of the product after inflation. They reduce the quality. So if it's, for instance, a loaf of bread, and they used to put butter, they used to put milk, they used to put every ingredient that will make it taste awesome, and they will sell it for $5. After inflation, they don't want to increase the price. They will stop putting enough butter. They will not put any milk at all. The bread will now be bland. So the quantity remains the same. The price remains the same. CPI cannot know. Because CPI is not a human being to taste the bread and say, quality is bad. Let me tell you another challenge for CPI in measuring inflation. It is also the attitude of the consumer. Okay? So if standard bread costs $5, okay, and this is the recognized bread and price for bread, all right, now if the price goes up to $15, for instance, okay, there will always be one low quality bread somewhere that is being sold for $5. So people who can no longer afford $15, they now step down to $5. CPI will not be able to note that there is inflation in bread because the majority have moved to $5. So CPI is not seeing any difference. Let me show you another limitation of CPI. Okay. Now, there is, before inflation, this is a TV, a television set that is being sold for $5. Okay. After inflation, the manufacturer begins to sell this particular TV for $50. He just adds maybe 2 more channels and 1 extra speaker. He calls it $50. CPI will not see this as inflation. CPI will be carried away by the things they added. No, it's not the same thing now. You know, they added this, they added that. So the product will now become overpriced. It is also inflation. All right. So over the years, people's money lose value as a result of inflation. So what can be done against inflation? And that is why number one thing you can do is make sure you invest your money, because stagnant money continually loses value, continually loses its purchasing powers. So make sure you are investing, at least, even if the investment percentage is not above the inflation level, at least you're getting something in return and you're cushioning against the effect. Okay. So number 2, diversify your currency. If your local currency is falling in value, you can start saving and investing in dollars. Okay, it is possible. Invest in US stocks. Okay, diversify your currency, get some crypto. So that's the way to go for you to, you know, cushion your money against the effect of inflation. Number 3, for instance, if this was a house, okay, that was built in 1979 and the cost of building that house was $10. If that house existed till today, year 2025, the value of that house might have gone to like $100,000 from $10 in 1979. Not that the house added weight, but because our currency has been devalued. There is inflation. The price of everything has gone up. So you want to look at investing in real estate, okay? Because that way your house will not only retain its value, it will appreciate by way of inflation, which makes prices of goods and commodities to go up on an annual basis, okay? You want to also look at things like gold, which has been relatively stable in the past decades. Okay, so these are ways you can cushion the effects of inflation. And inflation is real, and a lot of countries are battling inflation as it affects them as a nation. Okay, I hope you learned something from this video. Make sure you share this video with somebody so that they can be enlightened about what inflation is all about, and so that they can know that they need to invest their money. You saving your money in the bank, you're not doing yourself a lot of favor. Your money continually goes down and depreciates in value. Until I see you in the next one, I remain Victor Isibo. It is bye-bye for now.